'Cause each man deserves respect, and they get an equal share. And until you give it him back.
All right. It's another Sunday. We back in the house. It's cold outside. I don't know where that wind came from. It whipped around the corner, hit me in the head, and hit my co-workers and my guests in the head. So I know it's cold. I don't know what happened, but it's cold. But anyway, hopefully you guys are in your warm house, and if you're here, thank you for joining us. And let me say good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday Spotlight, brought to you by the One More, One Less Mentoring Program. I'm your host/mentor, Mr. Tony Hinton, and joining me today is my co-host and mentor, Mr. Charles Pratt.
What's up, good people? How y'all feeling today?
Yes. We hope you had a great week and you're enjoying the holiday season. We look forward to getting you started on a good note and leaving you with some things to think about today. Now, before we get started on today's show, I want to quickly give a shout-out to everyone who makes this show possible, Mr. Ron Beezer and the entire One More, One Less Mentoring Program, and, of course, Mix Station Radio family. And now, let's introduce our guest for today's show, Mr. Alphonso Mayo, founder of Mentoring Mentors, a youth wholeness mentoring program which promotes social, emotional, and intellectual development and physical wellness for Afro-American youth. How you feeling today, Mr. Mayo?
Thank you for having me, mentor Tony, my big bro. I'm feeling great, man. Blessed to be here. Blessed to be in you guys' presence.
I'm glad you can make it. Yeah, definitely glad you can make it. We want to thank you for joining us today. Now, the Sunday Spotlight is about addressing the issues our young people are facing today and empowering not only them, but you, the listener, with the knowledge and resources to build solid foundations and a sense of purpose for not only our young people, but for you as well. And we're serious about our business. The Sunday Spotlight not only talks about the social issues facing our youth and our communities, we present the organizations, programs, and the people who are making a positive difference in changing the mindset of our youth and our communities. Not just here in Baltimore City, but throughout the country. Now, the theme for December is about giving, where we will be focusing on various aspects of giving to the community and our youth. And our question of the day, if you had the financial means to invest in Baltimore City's youth, what would you do for our youth? Once again, if you had the financial means to invest in our Baltimore City youth, what would you do for our youth? So think about that question. Like I said, you can call in at the number. We'll give you that number in just a moment. We also want to remind you this is a live broadcast, and we'll be streaming on various social media outlets like our own OMOL Facebook page, Mix Station Radio, Instagram, and various other social media outlets. Now, understand this. We want your input and feedback, so don't be afraid to hit us up and join in on our conversations. You can hit us up directly on our OMOL or our Mix Station Radio Facebook pages, or call us here at the station at 1-855-493-6499. Again, that number is 1-855-493-6499. Or leave your comments on our OMOL or Mix Station Facebook pages. So let's get this show started, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, first question. What do you feel youth in general are lacking within Baltimore City?
What do I feel?
What do you feel, Charles? I see you screaming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
where you at?
So before I answer that question,
okay,
let me kind of reintroduce myself, because what you just gave was the nonprofit version of who Alphonso Mayo is. So first and foremost.
No, we're going to get into that.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get in. I got a question for you. All right. So don't go too far.
Don't go too far. I'll just kind of start with this. First, I am a husband. And then secondly, I'm a father.
Right.
But before all of that, I'm a son of Christ. I'm a believer. Mm-hmm. And so when I just think about what youth really need, I really think that we need stronger family structure. Like when you look at the dynamics of Baltimore, in its essence, over 600,000 people, about 78% African American. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you look at the demographic that's struggling the most, it's usually the black and brown people.
Right.
And a lot of the kids that we currently serve usually come from single-parent households. Mm-hmm. Even when we think about that terminology, it was created because fathers weren't present. It had nothing to do with the absence of mothers. And so when I think about Baltimore City youth, I just think that there need to be a stronger presence of men and how we hold men accountable.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a great answer. I can't, Charles. I don't even know if you can back that
I
up.
really
That's
can't.
just
I'm just going to co-sign it and be like, period. Like, we need our men back in our community.
Yeah.
We need
Right.
to stop this whole, we're going to kill each other. We got to stop this dealing drugs to each other. We got to stop just hating on one another for the smallest of infractions,
Right.
because, you live on a different block.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
you don't own any property on, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying, like
yeah.
but it's. I'm tired. We're tired. We've done had how many resurgence of the black men in the community without it being a sustained stretch.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. It's like we
Now,
build it. Yeah.
granted, there are a lot of challenges that are against us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Outside forces.
So when I think about some of those challenges, let's just be clearly systemic challenges,
Yes, sir.
historical challenges.
Yes.
We have just even in the space of education.
Yes.
Not to mention with the onset of the drug epidemic, mental health crisis. So we do have a lot of odds and problems within our community. But whenever there's a problem, there's always a possibility and there's a solution. You just have to have a group of people willing to fulfill that solution. But the odds are so much against us, in my opinion, that young men kind of cave into what the problematic is.
Yeah.
Right.
And they just start to live under what I consider like the status quo or the social norms.
Right.
It's not living. It's survival.
Right.
Unfortunately, it is that.
And so, we do have a lot of problems. I just think that as a community, how do we solve those problems collectively together? I just think that looking at the standards in which we all live by, right? Because I can't tell you how to live. You can't tell me how to live. I can't tell him how to live, and so on and so forth. But what we should be able to do is hold one another accountable as men. Absolutely. So, like, if I see you out and I know you married and you're a dad, and I see you out, I should be a big bro Tony, like, what's going on over here, right? And,
right.
And as a man, you should be like, oh, man, I appreciate that because I'm looking out for your well-being.
Yes, sir.
Just
Right.
like, it was once upon a time, I remember when I was coming up, my neighbors could check me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We all remember that.
They could check me and they could say, hey, look, you're not going to do that around here. Or they would report me to my family, and then my family would make sure that certain things would never happen again. Right? It was
just for the embarrassment.
right.
Of it,
And
pretty
so
much.
it was a sense of accountability, a sense of community, and I think we have gotten so beyond those times, right? Like when I think of pioneers like a Dr. Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, right? Like those historical figures, how were they able to create so much change without technology? Right? It was a sense of community. It was a sense of belonging. It was a sense of oneness. It had nothing to do with the individual. It had everything to do with the group of people. And we moved so far past that.
Yeah, but we've moved so far past it that we become individualized.
Yeah.
And so everything that we do is on an individual basis. It's not as a collective. And then when you do get that collective, it's like you can't sustain it.
Yeah.
You might have it for a couple of weeks. You might have it for a couple of months. But then it always seems to go this way.
Yeah.
And you can tell it because even when we bring new mentors in, we might have them for a week. Maybe 2 weeks, and then we don't see him anymore.
Understand.
You know what I'm saying? So where's that commitment that you said you had?
Yeah.
It's no longer there. And that's only because we haven't been taught. And like you said, with the family dynamic, that is the basis of it.
We haven't been taught.
But we got to figure out how to get back to that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And when we talk about rites of passage, you know what I'm saying? We don't have any of that.
Absolutely.
So what defines me as a man? What age says, I should be manly things or whatever the case may be, What is it that we need to do in order to regenerate that and fluctuate that back into our society as a group and as black males and as the black family?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was put into a point to break up the black family.
It was.
And that's why we are where we are.
Understand.
You know what I'm saying? So that it was created, it was demonized, it was put out there in the early 60s, 50s to break up the black family because we were too united.
Understand.
You know what I'm saying? So this is where we are at this point. So how do we change that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do we bring that back?
So I'm gonna go with what you're saying because what you just asked was how do we change that? And so when I think about the work that I do, by all means, this was simply And I mean, when I'm saying this from the heart, this is a calling.
Yes.
I remember when I first decided to get into this work, I started out as a coach, and I was volunteering at another great organization called Safe Alternative. And we were working with younger kids, and it was good. It felt good to do the work, but I knew that wasn't my niche.
Right.
I wanted to work directly with young men, especially young men that people had given up on. A lot of people, when I was coming up, because I was an athlete, a lot of people didn't know that I struggled with literacy. I was reading on like a first grade level. Math was even lower. And a lot of people had written me off in 9th grade. And I'll never forget that. And so when I started coaching high school football, I can see or I can feel the presence of a spirit that many of those young men were going through the same depression that I had denied and was going through. Didn't really feel a sense of belonging. They were struggling educationally. And I really believe that a lot of young men use football as a tactic, right? And so when I started to do it, I was like, well, how do I connect with them on an emotional level where they can see themselves in me, right? I was still in the midst of a storm, but I was learning, and I wanted to teach them. And as we matriculated through the years and we grew, one of the things I said to myself was, why don't men help other men? And I played sports my entire life, and I realized that there's no class. If you think about K through 12, you think about college, you think about masters, there's no class to really teach people how to care about people.
Right.
That doesn't exist.
That's social.
And so I said, well, what could we do? I'm talking to some of my 9th graders, and I'm like, how can I get people to learn how to care about people? And we constructed something we call a near-to-peer intergenerational model. So now we mentor, we call our students legacy builders. So we mentor our legacy builders. And once they become 9th graders, we call them mentor apprentice. And we pair them with the incoming legacy builder to teach them the nuances of relationships and accountability. Because now I have someone that's about to go through the same process I was in for 3 years. And it's my job to make sure that they don't face the same struggles that I had in middle school, right? A lot of them don't get that. Yeah. Like no school is teaching that. It's assumed that we know how to care about one another. But the truth is we don't.
Right.
And a lot of us don't care about ourselves enough to even care about other people. And so
that's where it starts, right there.
And so
that's the main piece.
And so for me, it has to be something that's taught early on. You have to plant that seed and then watch it grow. I think the downside to the work that you and I both do is that a lot of these foundations, they're looking for ROI, right? But when we think about our own kids, like when I think about my son and my daughters, I never utilize terms like at risk or underserved because they're struggling in school or they're struggling with their emotions. Those are my kids.
Right,
I love on them.
Well, like I said, that's a society word.
Right.
That's a grant word. In order for you to get grants, you have to say that stuff. But that's not what we got to tell our kids. You know what I'm saying?
So when I go to foundations, I ask them, like when your kids are struggling, do you give up on them or do you love them through, right? Because the truth is we don't know what any of our kids will become. We do know what will happen if we're absent and we don't give them opportunity or access to opportunity and see them through. We know what the results are.
Right.
And so a lot of times when they think about mentoring programs and it's just in itself, a lot of people are saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen. But we do know what's going to happen if they don't get the services that they need.
Right.
We do know what's going to happen. Right. And that's why you see so much crime in Baltimore, because for so many years, people are looking for just this one size fit all. This instant. That's not realistic, because if I was to speak to your parents, they wouldn't have been like, oh, Tony he gonna be in the military, he gonna be a mentor. They would never be able to look at you at 5 and 6 and 7 and 8th grade and say those things, right? A lot of stuff happened by happenstance, and the fact that they were in your life and they gave you guidance and direction, and a lot of that you can't compensate them for. Right? You just can't. There's no way to measure it like what your mom or your dad or your uncles or your aunts or your coaches and some of your teachers have done.
Well, you are right. There is no real way to put it on a data piece, but how you come up and what you become is the measurement.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Did you go to jail? Did you stay in trouble? Yeah. Were you that person who started giving back, caring about the community? All that is inputted through your parents and through those who work around you, who support you. So when you have that foundation, yeah, you don't know exactly what you're going to become occupationally, but you know who you're going to become as a person.
As a person,
You can compound your experience in life, right? And you can compile that with your environment, and you can kind of tell like what your trajectory is going to be,
right?
Just based upon who you're around, consistently.
Right.
And so
and
that's something.
Yeah.
That's something we teach our kids. Like how you spend your time is what you will become.
Right.
I remember when I my goal and my dream was to be in the NFL, and when I got to college, and I always played the video game. But I was playing the video game probably 6 hours a day. I was working out 4 hours, right? And if you do the time over a great deal of months, I was really good at the game. I was winning money. I was making money, but I didn't make it to the NFL. And when I looked at how I spent my time was spent playing games.
Right.
And that's what I was good at. And so you can kind of utilize that logic no matter what we use. And
that's that analogy for what we do when we do certain things. Yeah, definitely that. But yeah, definitely commend you on that piece. I know with us, we work with the more elementary kids because we feel that there's an opportunity to mold minds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is an opportunity to say, we showed you that. We showed it. We taught it to you. So it's not like you're going through you're getting to that middle school, high school level, but now you have the tools. You've been told, you've been shown how that can make a difference. So that's why we kind of concentrate on the elementary, because that's our time where they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But they're trying to learn and find out who they will become.
Yeah.
So if we're instilling these certain characteristics into you about hard work, effort, respect, stuff of that nature, if you understand that process, you can never say you never saw it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, what you do with it is something else.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can never say you be taught. So if we're molding minds at that age, and that's why we stick with the elementary, because it's an opportunity to give them the guidance to help them become the person they may become. So when you get them, they may not be as bad.
Yeah,
they may be someone it just needs one or two other things to click them over.
Yeah, understand.
Because they already had the tools, they know about it, but now you're reinforcing what we're
Understand.
saying. You see what I'm saying?
I like that.
So that's kind of why we stick with that group, because it just is what it is. So with the second question, that kind of brings us to mentoring programs like ours. We know our programs work. We've seen it. We have the data. We have the experience and all that. And we've seen that. So, however, why do you think it's so hard to obtain funding and support from Baltimore City communities, government, businesses, and educational system from the surrounding governments? Why is it so hard to see the type of work that we do? Because that frustrates the hell out of me.
The thing about it is we're all fighting for the same pot.
Yeah, understand.
That's the very first thing.
So they say that, and in some cases that's true. But when you look at several of the foundations who are here, they have enough money to support maybe all of the grassroots. I don't know exactly how many organizations exist that are serving youth, but I know it's well within the hundreds.
Oh yeah, it's in the hundreds. Oh, no question.
So first and foremost, I will say that there are some organizations who definitely support grassroots work, right? Like the T. Rowe Price Foundation, Building for God Foundation, Shelter Foundation. Like those are some of the foundations who accept you for where you are and who you are, and they want to see you do great work. Like literally, I'm talking about the monetary is great, but the investment, the persons that they invest inside of you or in you are just amazing. In my journey since 2014, one of the things that I found is the hardest is that, a lot of people see a problem and they identify a problem with their own upbringing, and they know what the solution could possibly be. However, they don't have the infrastructure or the know-how. Like me, when I got into nonprofit, for 2 years, I worked an overnight job to support my efforts. I had no idea that you could raise money. Right. My wife didn't like that. But I knew I didn't know. Right. And so you think about the learning curve that a lot of us come in the game with. Right? The lack of experience. And some people, they just going to take full advantage that you don't know. You don't know. So, right. I can tell you, I can show you this RFP, but if you don't know what this means, you're not going to get it. Right. And then a lot of times we know, or at least in my opinion, how do you really build out a budget that shows sustainability? Like, what does infrastructure really mean to an individual versus an organization versus a program? And what I've seen is that a lot of people might not know what that is. And so sometimes they just need coaching and guidance. But once you get the coaching and guidance, I think systemically there's such disconnect between the grassroots leaders of color, and foundations.
Right.
A lot of times it's just a disconnect because the Baltimore that they see isn't necessarily the Baltimore that the rest of the world sees.
Right.
Right. Or the people, this group of people who are struggling, like the students you and I serve, their families don't see what the foundation see. And so it's our job to kind of bring the two together. Like we're the centerpiece and we're trying to pull them together. But how sometimes what happens is we're pulling more of the community because we know that that's a need and that some people's lives are at stake if we're not there.
Right.
And then we're trying to stay in contact with the foundations. However, some of their expectations can be so
overwhelming,
a lot
based off of a simple thing that you want to do.
You know, like, because me personally, I am more of a logic guy, right? I'm a storyteller, not necessarily a data guy. And that's not that I don't believe in data. However, I'm coming to, foundations like, hey, like, look at what we're able to achieve in a short amount of time. Look at the families that we're impacting, right? And how could we get more funding to impact more families? But what happens is when people get in routine, because we all are creatures of habits, including leaders of foundations. So if I'm used to giving to, some of the more prominent organizations, and I don't want to name throw, but like, let's say, for example, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Right. If I'm used to giving to them, I've been giving for 15 years. Why would I stop?
Right.
Why would I stop? And so we have to find a more realistic way to scale, right? And for foundations to understand that if this organization is new or younger, I have to provide them not only with the financial supports, but I have to provide them an opportunity to go and seek coaching. And that sometimes costs money, right? Like raising money costs money.
Raising money costs money.
Right? Raising money costs money.
Right,
and I think too often they don't, it's like they don't, like, it almost seemed to me like some individuals don't understand that. But I can tell you there are some good people that do understand that. Like, I'm a name drop, like the Mike Brooks of the world, right? He understands it takes money to raise more money. Right. The John Brothers of the world, it takes collaboration, right, in order to grow sometimes. Like, how do we trade sugar? How do we knock on each other's doors like we used to? Hey, my mama said we need some bread, and if you guys need some milk and eggs, you come over.
Right, the compromise.
And so I think sometimes because there are so many organizations who know that the work is in great need, one of the strengths would possibly be is if we found positive ways to collaborate. Like, for example, you said you work with elementary school kids. We don't. But those are the same kids that you should be passing along so that we can see that full pipeline trajectory. Yep. So when we do go to funders and foundations, they like, oh, my goodness, they took this group of kids and they skylined them, right? It was a direct pipeline. And so whomever are doing, great work with high school kids, we funnel them into that program. Right. And now it's like a chain effect. And it's not me stepping on your toes or you stepping on my toes. We're just working
passing
for the
buck.
greater.
Right. Passing the buck for the greater good.
And I think sometimes there's so many people that's doing so much great work and it's duplicate. And I hate to play devil advocate, but I'll see foundations or they'll say to me, like, who should I pick? Right? You guys have similar colors. You have similar names. You doing similar programs. Right. You guys have similar outcomes. So why would I just serve the kids that live on, Pennsylvania Avenue when the kids on Drew Hill Avenue got the same problems and he working on them? So how do I know the difference?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I see that. And I guess it's just a matter of understanding, that if the needs are the same, then okay. I got $1,000. I'm gonna break off a $500 for this group and $500 for that group. Split the money up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? For grassroots organizations like ourselves, every little bit helps.
Yeah. That's
so
fair.
you don't necessarily have to give to one group.
Yeah.
Where's the facility and giving to all groups what you can. You can break that $1,000 up how you want to. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You may not be able to give it to all, but pick 2 or 3 groups.
You never know.
You know what I'm
saying? Even if it's like $100, you never know. That $100 could like really
for
change
transportation fund.
Yeah.
Okay, good. $100, $500, that's fine. Break it up like that. I'll take the $500. It doesn't have to be for the whole program.
Yeah.
Right.
It could just be it could be for paying for lunches.
Yeah.
When you have a session, you pay for their lunch, nutritious lunches or whatever it is the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may pay for the travel fund, allow them to take them out of the environment that they see every day that some kids never even get a chance to get out of, and show them something different.
Yeah.
It don't have to be for the whole program.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? But they have to think in that mindset.
So this is what I would encourage, my fellow grassroots brothers and sisters, and I do. I tell them all the time because I was just like this. I thought, once I learned the nonprofit sector and I started to embrace some of this, language that was more so discriminatory language, that is what I call it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I said, you know what, I'm no longer going to use that because I wouldn't call my son or my daughter that, and I showed some of my students that. But what I can say is that I think we become, and again, too reliant. Sometimes you got to say, you know what, we don't need you. And this is how we're going to do it. And so thinking of other strategies to bring in funding,
right,
to become self-sustaining,
right,
is because, again, like I know, grants are hit or miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They're hit or miss. But finding actual sustainable programming where you can, fund yourself and then say, hey, we no longer need you. I think when that happened, that's when people, when people know you don't need them, that's when they come. When they know you don't need them,
right?
When they know you need them, that's when they take advantage. And I always encourage myself because I honestly don't have a sustainable, independent income stream. I wish I did,
right?
And I'm working on it, and I will get there.
Yeah, we all are,
right? And I will get there.
Mm-hmm.
So until then, I cultivate relationships. I build genuine relationships. What I decided to do, because I know this is a calling, and I pray over this. I say, God, listen, if whoever don't want to give to me, because if they're judging me by the way that I talk, the color of my skin, the way that they perceive me, the communication or my zip code, remove them.
Right.
I will focus on the one donor that's willing to buy in and it's going to give me multi-year grant versus the one hit and quit, right? The one that's like, I'll give you this small bucket of money, and if you fail, so be it.
Right.
And I've been in that boat where I was like, oh, man, like I really need to fund it. And a lot of the funders don't know the backstory because they're not struggling like you, right? Like their marriage isn't in a rut like yours, and their kids aren't suffering like yours, and their bills aren't behind like yours. So what that taught me was to gain a sense of independency. And I think one of my brothers, Mr. Van Brooks, he does it well. Honestly, one day we had a conversation. He said, man, listen, start buying stuff. Mm-hmm. Don't ask, just buy it, right? Buy buildings if you have to, buy vans if you have to, right? He's like, have ownership, right? Like,
well, I think that essentially that's kind of what you want in the long run or in the end run.
Yeah, you want your autonomy,
yeah, right? But you also too. I know with us, like with One More One Less, we've been maintaining for that because we have been self-sufficient.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But knowing that all this free money is out here, and we can't,
it's too much free money.
Can't tap into it for some odd reason, or we'll tap into it, but we're not good enough. You know, it's not this, or you need this data, or you need this. You know what I'm saying? It's just sometimes it's just frustration because really we don't need much.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We don't need much.
Yeah.
To maintain.
Can I ask you a question? What school are you at?
We're at Belmont. Belmont Elementary.
Belmont. And I don't know the principal there, and I don't know the school, and I'm pretty sure they, provide space when they can. But there's other avenues, right? Like, contracting through the school where stipends can be provided. And I always tell people, and I'm getting better at doing this. If you really like my services and you want my services, you would pay for those services. It's no different than when we go buy cars, right? You ain't gonna go to Jiffy Lube and get your oil changed for free.
True.
Right? You're going to pay for that service. And guess what? If they raise the price $50, guess what? You're going to pay $50 extra if you want your car service well. And so sometimes we have to be fearless enough to go to people that we're serving and say, hey, I do need your help. Right? I really do need your help. I'm not saying go directly to the families, but sometimes you got to think about this. We're taking time away from our family and our loved ones, and even $5 from each kid you serve.
Right.
That would be so helpful. And you know it like I know it, right? Because sometimes some of us are serving the masses. We're serving 300 kids, 200 kids. And $5 from each one of them families, because I know them families have struggles too, but sometimes when you have to buy into what you know is successful, because if people like you and I disappear, we know that there's a lot of young people who are going to face a lot of hardship. And those families should also be pouring into us because we're pouring into them. And I'm sure you guys experienced what I experienced. I was pouring from an empty glass a lot of the time.
Right.
And I'm looking back like, oh, my goodness, like I'm giving all I can.
But I'm not receiving.
But I'm
all
not
that
receiving.
I should be receiving.
And so
Or
sometimes,
could be. Yes.
So sometimes you have to think, and I've even had families say, look, we should be helping. And I appreciate that. Even if I don't take it, I appreciate the fact that they're willing to pour into something that's helping their youth and helping their families, essentially, because that's really what this is about. It's about changing the dynamics of families. And so,
yeah, sometimes we got to make those tough choices and those tough decisions on that piece. Even though, we want to do more, we want to do it the best way we can. We understand that sometimes they don't have the means, so we try to do what we can with what we have. But yeah, sometimes you do have to go ahead and step outside the limelight or outside those boundaries and go ahead and make those tough decisions. So yes, definitely understand that. All right, I don't know where y'all at, but like I said, we're having a great conversation here. I hope you guys can get in on this conversation. Like I said, the number is at the bottom of the screen if you're streaming us live. If not, that number is 1-855-493-6499. Get in on this conversation, and I'm gonna just throw this question of the day at you guys real quick, and then we'll go ahead and take a break. If you had the financial means to invest in Baltimore City's youth, what would you do for our youth? If you had the financial means, what do you think, Charles?
Oh, you want to? I thought we were going to take a break. What you want?
No, we're going to take right after we answered it, because that's my last question out of the discussion. So you could do it real quick, or however you want to do it. No, I mean, if you had one, all right, put it like this: if you had one thing that you could do, say you're not a billionaire, millionaire, whatever, but you had the financial means to invest in Baltimore City's youth, what would that thing be? What would that one thing? What would you do? It ain't got to be a whole bunch of things. It can be just one set thing, because it only takes one thing to really change everything. You know what I mean?
I'm buying every rec center I get my hand on.
Understand?
Oh,
yep. There you go.
I'm building
so
more.
You would build them and
one
you would
per side of town.
Renovate them, right?
I'll tear down blocks if I have to. You know what I'm saying? Those empty, blocks
vacant lots,
nobody
houses that's sitting there.
I'm tearing it down, and I'm building some sort of community resource center.
I love
somewhere. I mean, multiple ones, because you can have one on East Side, but there's a difference between East Side and down the hill.
Probably one in every community, maybe. Significantly.
Yeah. Honestly,
that's fair. That's good. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I like that. I was thinking the same lines too. So
I mean, because you're providing a service,
right,
and you're also employing people in the community.
Right.
We need people to run this. Right?
Yeah.
Why not people who actually live there?
Within their own community.
I like that.
And if they, if they give a damn, they'll inspire the next generation,
right,
to give a damn, which inspires the next generation, which
continuous cycle,
which builds that community, that strength that we need. Because, like we always say, no one is coming to save us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we gotta save us.
That's amazing. I got a big bro by the name of Sean Dove. He is the CEO of Campaign for Black Male Achievement. That's the first thing that come out his mouth every time. We are the Calvary. No one else is coming to save us, and so we got to be there for ourselves. I think, man, if I can answer the question,
you sure can.
Honestly, because I like to always think about like this 2-generational approach. My passion and my calling is to serve the youth, but by all means is to strengthen those families. And so we do something once a month we call parent night, and it's to build stronger relationships, to get the parents talking, get them excited about our programs. But one of the things that I would do, and what God has put on my heart, is that if this ever do come to pass, when it does come to pass.
Yes, think that way, yes, please.
I'm not only going to buy a school, but I'm going to buy up the surrounding community.
Haley.
And instead of renting out homes for every kid that's serving in our program and that's going through our school, K through 12, their parent has to own a house within that radius, a certain mile radius, a zip code radius. Because at the end of the day, like, I think when people have ownership, they treat it a little bit better than when
absolutely.
something is given.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so
you're talking about affordable housing for that
Affordable-
area
for that area,
that you're going to be
Within that-
opening that school in.
you have to, because you
Right.
got to think about it. When you look at the school dynamics, a lot of schools are suffering because people don't care about them neighborhoods, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And why would people move to neighborhoods that's crappy or trashy or dangerous, right?
Right.
And then the schools suffer because of that. But when you are an owner, I own this. This is mine.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you own that school too.
Right, because
And not to mention, because I'm taking ownership in that school, I'm taking ownership in everything that happens within that school. Like, if we're a community, then we should always be communicating
Mhm.
about how we're serving, who we serving, and what we're doing to make sure that they're being served properly.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
like
would
that.
do, man.
I like that. I think for me, if I would had that type of money to actually do it, make a difference, I would probably go in each school and create a program that allows us to find out about us, what we've contributed,
yes,
what we can do, provide financial schooling, financial aid, bring back the arts, bring back the handcraft, the crafts and stuff like that, the electricians, the carpenters, the metal workers. I would bring all those classes that we used to have back in the day back into the school system.
Because knowledge is power.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
So I would create a class, hire people who are experts to teach those classes and make sure they're a part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would do if I had the money to do that. So
That's right.
So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get into a little break here. We're sitting here talking to Mr. Alphonso Mayo, basically. And from there, we'll get into mentoring mentors and what that program is about. And we'll be right back with the Sunday Spotlight.
Damn.
Already.
Sorry, Time Warner.
Right?
Dang. I can't let a brother live a little bit.
Live a little, dance a little bit, enjoy the moment. You know what I'm saying?
What we trying to do to pass off some good information. You know what I mean?
Trying to block us and whatnot. You know, that's all right. We was on break, so whatever. Whatever.
We back.
That's right. We back with the Sunday Spotlight once again. Thank you for tuning in with us. We're here with Mr. Alphonso Mayo, founder of Mentoring Mentors, youth wholeness mentoring program, which promotes social, emotional, and intellectual development and physical wellness for African American youth. So we're going to get into his story and his foundation, what some of the things that they're doing. And once again, like I said, get in on this conversation. You know, leave your comments here on Facebook, our OMOL page, or Mixed Station Radio. You can definitely do that. Or you can hit Mr. Mayo up directly. He is FaceTiming live as well.
Yeah.
And you can send him your information. Or if you have comments, you always go through him as well. So don't be afraid to put some words on the air. Don't be afraid. So I'm going to jump right on in it real quick. So, Mr. Mayo, tell us a little bit about yourself and your inspiration behind starting Mentoring Mentors. And you kind of gave us a little insight on that.
Yeah. So most definitely born and raised right here in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of the students I serve faced uphill battles. Some would define it as trauma. I was raised by my grandparents who showed me the meaning of love. By all means, what genuine compassion and love look like for one another, even in the midst of all of that chaos.
Right.
My dad, in and out of my life, we're closer now than we were when I was younger. My mom, she abandoned me at 6 months, and that's how I started.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. You know, the drug epidemic took over a lot of families and destroyed a lot of families. Man, I was passed through elementary and middle school, and by the time I hit high school, my dream of becoming an NFL player, it had to go through the academic rounds, right? And so when I not being able to read, struggling with math, but there I've always had what I consider lifetime mentors. Yeah. People like my youth coach, Roland Brown, who taught me lessons like never quit. And if you ever see the back of our shirt, it say, never get comfortable. And everybody has their own level of never get comfortable. But for me, it's, again, the social norms, the status quo, never surrendering to that and always living above that and doing it under the power of God and the grace and mercy of God. And so I went off to North Carolina Central, chasing this football dream, had a child, knew that I wanted to be a father first. Because he's our father first. And so came back home, left the dream alone. After the passing of my grandma, I had made some promises to her. She unfortunately was diagnosed with dementia and cancer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And for some odd reason, man, she forgot everything else. Her name, our address, maybe how she looked, my name. But she never forgot that I made a promise that I would go back to school. And her last day at our residence, as she was being, hauled into the ambulance, she looked at me and she said, "When you gonna go back to school?" And I'm like, "This woman, he crazy."
Right.
And I'm like, "Don't worry about that. Don't matter." Like, and that was the last words my grandma spoke to me. I wound up going to Stevenson University.
Yeah, right up in Owens Mills.
Yep.
Yeah,
and Stevenson University was my safe haven. It was my bubble away from my real reality. I knew that my reality wouldn't always be my circumstances, but Stevenson was like my hiding place. They took a chance on me, and so I gave it my all. I wound up graduating in the top of my class. And they only teach, man, a sense of community and giving back and service learning. And so just redefining what community meant to me. And now, as soon as shortly after I graduated, I had started some projects at Stevenson University that they currently do. But as soon as I graduated, man, every part of me wanted to give back to Baltimore what I had learned. And it's not code switching by any means, but it's understanding where you are and how to thrive and not survive, but how to thrive. And so because I'm a, naturally football and I'm an athlete, but I always teach my kids, man, the things that I do on the basketball court, it's not what I do on the football field, and vice versa. And you have to understand, in order to operate within this world,
you gotta adapt.
You gotta be adaptable, man. And so when I think
flexible.
about Baltimore, I really believe that we have resilient people here, because a lot of them are exposed every day to things that a lot of other people wouldn't survive. They would go crazy.
Right.
They would go mad. And just to see, like when I meet people like yourself, the Darren Rodgers, the Vans, the Joe Gambles, the Naaman Browns, my Pastor Rod, man, you name, I can just keep going and going and going and going and going. I was just like, man, I want to be a part of that group, because I had some teachers who believed in me. Some of those teachers didn't look like me.
Right.
But they believed in me, and they were men. So when we looked at one another, that's what we saw, men. And I said, man, I want to give back, and I want to teach young men what that looked like. How do we really take back our communities through a sense of accountability? And I started this in 2014, and I never looked back.
Nice.
So what I will say before I even get into like what mentors is, I made some silly choices in doing this work. I almost felt this urge, like I gotta do it by myself, right? Like if I don't do it, it's not gonna work.
Exactly.
Right.
I know exactly what you mean.
And God won't bless that. I made a lot of bad choices and put my family second. But what I teach my young men now is that the best thing, if I never work with them again, the best thing that I can show them is how to be a husband and a father. Because if we had more husbands and fathers, Baltimore would be a different place. Man, if this world would be a different place.
Right.
And so that's the lens I look through now. Like, God, family, and everything else.
I like that.
And so just to kind of get into what mentors is, man, so we are, again,
which is my second question. So tell us a little bit about that and what you provide for young men and those who want to become mentors.
Okay, so man, we're a nonprofit, 501c3, spearheaded by our board president, Mr. Christopher Gonzalez, who is a visionary, a leader, also a veteran like yourself. And so he has definitely shifted our dynamic. We have a dynamic board of 13 members. We also have a parent on our board and a student on our board.
Nice.
And I tell the student all the time, man, you're going to take my place. You're going to be the reason they fire me.
Right.
Because of your leadership skills.
Right.
But overall, our mission is to inspire confidence and a positive outlook in African-American youth about the trajectory of their lives, the passion for improving their communities, and instilling within them a desire to mentor others. I say all that to say we teach, again, through an intergenerational model. It's how do we build leaders up to replace us, and how do we teach them how to teach others to come behind them.
Right.
It's a sense of community. We work with young women as well. When I started this in 2014, it was kind of just like, hey, like work with one kid. But then I met a phenomenal co-founder by the name of Rachel Lewis, who is also a Stevenson alum, and she joined me. And, man, we skyrocketed. And she's just been by my side ever since. She is like an amazing trooper. And so we kicked off a young women's program called Young Women Creating Their Transformation. And we just had a lot of young women from Stevenson come and pour into them. Adiola, who is our program coordinator who leads them. And by all means, they're teaching sisterhood, how to love one another, because young women problems are a lot different than men. But the truth is, they need love from men as well, and men need to know how to love them as well. And so, just the other day, I was talking to these young ladies, and I asked one of the young ladies if she thought I was mean, and she said yes. And I said, why? She was like, because I don't know. And I was like, is it because I expect something of you that the world doesn't?
Great.
And she was, and I was like, thing. Like what's like normal is not normal for me,
right?
And I do the same thing for my kids, and so I'm completely fine with that. And just so we can get into just some of the nonprofit stuff right now. Currently, we're serving 25 amazing students at Windsor Hills Elementary Middle School.
I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Elementary Middle School, 3 of whom do not attend the school. So this is our first year having outside students attend our program. And it's just been an amazing experience.
Yeah,
because
we know that experience really well.
Really well.
Really
because
well.
even though they're outside of the school,
Yes.
the way that our students have embraced them,
Yeah.
they would have never done that their 6th grade year. And we know the struggles that, communities like Windsor Hill and Walbrook Junction and the
Yes.
Mondawmin community
Right.
have experienced, just historical factors where they haven't been exposed to outside opportunities or even funding.
Right.
And so, man, we just bring a different approach. Again, we try to focus on the possibilities versus the problems. We know the problems exist, but what happens when we embrace the possibilities and we focus on that? And so our goal has always been to serve students who, for lack of better terms, don't have outside encouragement.
Right.
Those who might struggle.
The support.
Yep.
Yes.
Those who might struggle with inner confidence.
Just trying to fill in those gaps.
And those who struggle with competence.
Yeah.
And the reason we focus on that a lot is from my personal struggle with competence. What I know to be true is that competence, it builds confidence. And
Right.
confidence changes character.
Absolutely.
Confidence can take you to a different level. But once we build competence within ourselves and confidence, how do we teach that to those around us? And how do we create alliances, real live brotherhoods with those who weren't born in our family, and sisterhoods of those who we really don't know? Every single day I tell them, man, when you walking down the street, you should be acknowledging the fact that people are in your presence, in your existence. And you
Right.
should be loving on them, because that's what community does. And for them, that's not normal.
Right. It's called manners.
Right. That's not normal.
That's a simple thing.
That's not normal.
That's
And
real.
Right.
and we do all of this because we would like to enhance self-efficacy, resilience, and empathy. For so many years, and I remember when I got to Stevenson and the word empathy came up, I didn't even know what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that for so long. And I remember when I was a teen thinking to myself, I could easily go out here and hurt someone because I didn't have any empathy. So now, how do we build their empathy and their compassion for others? So when they see strangers, they see themselves, they see brothers, they see neighbors. And it's all God work, honestly, man. Unlike most programs, man, we pray in school. No matter where I'm at, I try to, lead through the lens of God and whatever he pour into our soul and heart. And we teach through what we call the 4 focuses. Okay. A lot of people be like, oh, you stole that from Ford. No, it's the 4 focus. You got to have a focus so we can be able to measure, right? Mm-hmm. And so the first thing is, how do we build up leaders?
Right.
Like, how do we build up leaders where they can transform their community? Because they got to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
The second is, like, how do we focus on that competency, whether it's reading, writing, math, or science? And we do that through our tutoring program and our reading circle. Everything we do is in groups because we're trying to build a sense of community. Mm-hmm. And then how do we teach our kids how to really cope with some of the struggles that they deal with?
The traumas,
right? How do you cope with that?
Life.
And how do you not bring that into the classroom and make it a
discussion,
a toxic environment? Mm-hmm. Because some of the teachers are responding to toxic environments, and they're working against each other instead of for each other.
Right.
And then lastly, how do we build pipelines with higher education, vocational settings, and for military settings where African Americans may not play a major role? And so we've talked, and it's been in conversation like with Stevenson University, like how do we build a pipeline of black educators? How do we funnel them into your university?
Right.
For them to get service. It's not just access, but get through as they continue to pour in and serve within their community.
Yeah, the bigger picture.
How do we expose them, right? Because the truth is, when you look at the data nationally, we're not playing because there's a lot of black fathers within their household, by all means, regardless of what the TV shows
or the data shows or whatever.
There's a lot of dads, right? Just like there's 1.4 million African-American men in college, right? Mm-hmm. And there's only 1 million in jail, but we're led to believe that a lot of us go to jail versus college.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's media for you.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so how do we not only change the narrative, but take ownership, right? In the words of my brother Van Brooks, take ownership of the narrative. Mm-hmm. So how do we not just play a role in our families, but also in education?
Well, Well, like I said, that stems basically back to PTA stuff, being involved in your son or daughter's educational piece, that piece that we don't do because we feel that, work is more important, and not
our kids are work.
Understanding the education
our
of our
family
children.
Is work.
You know what I'm saying?
Our kids are work. Every relationship we
Everything
have
is
is work.
It's perspective.
And so how do we change that mindset? And so the group of young men that I work with, out of the group of young men, only 3 of them want to be athletes, and I'm proud of that.
That's fantastic.
I'm proud of that.
That's
They want to be engineers and designers and singers.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, listen, I'm going to embrace that, bro, and we're going to support you to the best of our ability.
Because we have too many. I think, I mean, that is an avenue. Sports is always an avenue.
Yeah. Right.
But I think we rely on that too much. I think we forget about the whole holistic person that we need to build, to understand not just that piece of it. And me and Charles have had that discussion many times with many other organizations. We expose them to sports, but what about the arts?
Yeah.
Right.
What about the music?
Right.
What about what Nick does with producing?
Yeah.
Right.
What
about the
those
B's,
avenues, right? Those avenues. We don't expose them to that. You know what I'm saying? Why is it always got to be a sports? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just saying let's be balanced about it.
That's
you know
where we see our father figures, right?
Yeah.
Like, look how many kids looking at Lamar Jackson right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they just can't wait to be him, right?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not who Lamar Jackson is. That's what he do. He played football, but that's not who he is.
Right.
So how do we show them the other side of him?
They should see the praying Lamar Jackson, the one that goes out in the community, the one that graduated or went to Louisville and was doing his work, right? But they only see him with the helmet on, right? And
what he's doing on the field.
Not understanding that, hopefully my prayer is that he have a 25-year career. But guess what? If he only have 4 or 5 or 6 or the average NFL career,
he still made a difference.
He's a person. He got the rest of his life to live. And I think if people actually understood that, especially young men of color understood, he has the rest of his life to live and give to this world. Because everyone is a shining light. I just think sometimes, our circumstances have a way of dimming it. But you can't hide what God has planted inside of you. No. And so I wanted to shine through. And so my job as the lead mentor for my organization is to make sure that those lights shine through no matter what their circumstances may be.
Good. So let me go right into this question, because I know our time is starting to run down, so I want to get these in. When you look at all the services that you provide, what do you feel is your strongest service that you provide?
Oh, that's easy. So we have something we call Community Day. Community Day is our opportunity to get young men in front of men like you and I, where we share our backstories. We share our struggles, trials, tribulations, but also what God has brought us through, our blessing. So not just our title, but who we are.
So like a forum of some sort?
We call it Community Day, and we call our speakers leaders by example.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And they just share everything that they experience. And we've had a plethora of speakers from, athletes to CEOs, to people who work in telecom, to doctors.
Yeah, so it's along the same lines of what we do, too, because we bring
gotta
in people
expose
from
them to
every
other
career
people,
field.
Because if not, they just don't know that it exists.
Right. So. Yeah, so we do the same thing. Yeah, definitely that. So we know that exactly what you mean on that one. So, so that's your strongest. We appreciate that much, definitely. Let me ask you a personal piece. When you look at some of the people that you've had a chance to work with, students or mentees, what person kind of touched you the most?
Oh, that's easy. My first mentee, his name is Malik Forster, changed my life completely. He was me in high school, just at a different high school in a different time. My first words to him was, if you stick with me, you'll make it to the NFL. I don't know why God told me to say that, because this kid had anger issues. He wanted to fight, and he was bigger than me, so he probably could have beat me up.
Right.
He didn't trust me.
Yeah.
He did not trust me as expected. But I'm proud to say, man, he graduated from Fresno State University, criminal justice degree. He currently works at Meade High School in education. And he didn't go to the NFL. He had 2 tryouts, played a little bit in the CFL. And we talk every week. And I watched this young man go from a high school student to a college grad to a father.
Wow.
And I'm so proud of that.
That's
and a teacher giving back to the community in that sense.
So
Yeah, so you made the difference.
That right there, man.
Yeah.
I like to say so. I just think that God paired us together because he had a vision inside of me, and Malik released that for me.
Right. So now that just gave you encouragement to do more.
Yeah.
Because you affected him in that manner. And that's a big piece right there. That's a big
huge.
piece. That's huge.
And so he actually will be testing. He wants to be a police officer. And there's nothing wrong with being a police officer, young man. Nothing wrong with serving your community.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes his physical test this upcoming Saturday. And I told him, man, I'll get out there and run with you. Right. I'll do what I need, whatever I need to do to make sure you're successful. And
Absolutely.
so I'm proud of that.
Definitely. What's next for Mentoring Mentors? What do you guys got
Expanding.
coming up?
So we started working with ninth graders. All of those young men have went off to graduate, and they're all in college, and they come back to our program.
Mm-hmm.
This upcoming year, we will be working with our legacy builders, who will be our first cohort of mentor apprentice. And so expanding, and building our team, building our infrastructure, making sure it's solid and sound, and building stronger relationships with foundations in our community. Our community are our parents and our students, and just how do we do that to our best and be as effective as we can be?
Well, you can definitely put us on the list.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You know, we have your back, and definitely we can talk about that pipeline piece I like that idea, you know, pushing forward towards the next level, and depending on where they're going or where they're at or how that, but we can work out the details on that later or something to that nature. But yeah, definitely interested in that.
Appreciate that.
And we would definitely push your information out to other organizations as well that might want to go up that pipeline. And let us know about the girls program. We love to have her on too.
Yeah.
And see what she's talking about. So definitely let her know that we're interested in hearing about her side of the coin as well for her young women that she's mentoring as well. So definitely let her know that we're interested in bringing her on.
I appreciate that.
So yeah, have her reach out. So that's good. So now if people want to get in touch with you or the program, how can they reach you?
So, I mean, first check us out. Check our website out, www.mentoring-mentors.org. Follow us on Instagram at mentoring_mentors.
Yeah, gotta put it out there.
All social medias, you can follow me, Alphonso Mayo, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it.
Right.
And we would love to connect.
Yeah, definitely
love to connect. But the best and easiest way is through our website.
Through the website. Absolutely. Charles, you got anything before we wrap it up, man?
I've just been enjoying.
You kind of quiet.
Yeah, I was just enjoying the conversation. You know, sometimes when a man when a person that comes on and they have their vision and they're putting it out there, and you can feel that energy, and I didn't want to disrupt it.
I ain't mad at you.
It's all God, man.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you at all. I mean, you got your information out there, and that's what we want.
Absolutely.
We want people to know about your organizations and many other organizations that are doing things. And if this is a venue that will provide it, we're going to continue to do what we need to do for the community in whatever manner or efforts that we can. You know what I mean? So if there's something coming up big that you want to know about, let us know. We'll get you back on the show with. Reinform the public about what you're doing and what you got coming up. So don't be afraid to reach out on that end. Definitely like to sit down with you on some of those funding opportunities, some of those people, because some of those people we haven't heard of. Mm-hmm. We have, but we haven't. Yeah. But not really reached out to them, but maybe see if they might want to do something with that, or maybe even just sponsor the radio show for what we're doing and stuff of that nature. So we'd love to network with them and see what they got going on as well. So I guess with that said, if Charles, you're at Nick, you good? Yeah, he good. He quiet.
Yeah, Nick good.
Yeah, Nick good. All right, so with that, once again, we've come to the conclusion of the Sunday Spotlight. We want to thank our special guest, Mr. Alphonso Mayo, founder of Mentoring Mentors, for joining us today, along with the Mix Station Radio family for holding down the Sunday Spotlight. And last but not least, we want to thank you, the listeners, for tuning in to the Sunday Spotlight radio show. If you would like to learn more about the Sunday Spotlight radio show and the One More One Less mentoring program, you can check us out on our Facebook page at facebook.com/OMOL mentoring, or visit our website at omolmentoring.org. We're also looking for sponsors, so if you like what you heard and you want to get your business or organization or program out there, become an official sponsor for the Sunday Spotlight, or donate to the Sunday Spotlight radio show /OMOL mentoring program, give us a call. We're a 501c3 organization. We have multiple sponsorship packages to accommodate any budget, and any donations that you make to the radio show / mentoring program is a tax write-off for you and or your business. So give us a call today at 443-562-7455, and let's get started on promoting your brand and in turn supporting our organization. Once again, thank you for listening to the Sunday Spotlight, and remember, stay focused, and whenever you can, help our young people reach for the stars. Good night.